Welcome to Maine, we're stretched to the bone. Prices keep rising, the paycheck stays prone. Inflation keeps knocking, won't leave us alone. They're selling the lie, groceries climbing, the gas tank is low. The bill's hitting harder than snow, but silence still blankets the truth. Where does it go? They're selling the lie. Housing is gridlocked from Portland to the county. Workers commute far past what feels soundly. Talk of solution comes yearly, not loudly. They're selling the lie. They're selling the lie. Say every voice counts, but watch who gets lifted. Some stories vanish, some get the spotlight shifted. Depends on what trends and what keeps them gifted. They're selling the lie. I won't believe them, I wanna believe, but truth's always stuck in between. Static and spin, drown the signal again. Nothing is what it seems. I wanna believe you, but every headline turns daylight into redesigned skies. Facts get twisted, context missing. We choke on the simplified alibis. Wanna believe you, but all I see is shadows where the answers should shine. The fact is fiction.
Welcome to the Muddy Waters Podcast, where Mainers tell their stories, unfiltered.
Good morning, Maine. Just barely. We're about to hit noon, but good morning. This is Chuck Ellis, and I am the host of the Muddy Waters Podcast. The Muddy Waters Podcast exists to aid in the effort to ensure that people of Maine actually know what the heck is going on in our state. Unfortunately, the mainstream media does not know, does not desire to ensure that people are informed. Instead, they seek to manipulate and control the narrative and tell you what the Democrat Party, because they essentially are a propaganda arm of the Democrat Party, want you to hear. And so we, along with some other people that I like to mention sometimes, like Enquirer, Maine X Community, Southern Maine Republic, on different platforms, and obviously the Maine Wire. But there are others out there that are trying to help correct the narrative and make sure that people actually know what the heck is going on with in our state. And how we do that is by bringing in different guests, people from around the state, generally, sometimes people from outside the state that help with the narrative in our state, to talk about what the heck is, what's going on. And one of the other hats that I wear is the chair of the Cumberland County Republicans. And so through that, I have different connections. And I'm also, one of the things that we're also trying to, in addition to informing the people, we're trying to help equip people to be able to get involved, which relates to the other piece, like what can you do? And so I'm really excited today to have David Whitney, who is the national committeeman and I think the chair of the Washington County Republicans, on to talk about a couple of things. But one of the things we're going to get to is this Neighborhood Navigator program, a way for anybody who wants to get involved to be able to do something to help, help us win elections all across the state, top to bottom, and by doing it in our local communities. So thank you for joining us, David.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Chuck. Meeting number 2. When did we do a podcast before? That was this winter, correct?
Yeah, I think it was January,
February, something like that.
I think it was. Yeah.
We were dressed differently. We had our long johns on, top and bottom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Maine winters.
Maine winters are tough. Also, very different environment in terms of politically. It's so interesting having now shifted from the primary season, for the gubernatorial race in particular, but also You've got that looming Senate race there, and the congressional races and things. The landscape has changed drastically for a lot of people. I think on both sides of the aisle, there were a lot of people. Everybody's got their candidate. They're really hopeful for their candidate, and now their candidate, if their candidate is one of the many who were eliminated, there's this like soul searching, I think, that a lot of people are doing to figure out, like, I think most people, whether you're Democrat or Republican, are going to end up supporting the candidate that won your party's primary. But there are people who are questioning that and asking whether or not they're going to vote and things along those lines. And for me, the calculus is simple on that issue. And I've had conversations with a number of people who are trying to figure out, and they have their reasons and whatever. And I ultimately don't necessarily care so much, because I look at it with simple calculus. I see two gubernatorial candidates, the independent and the Democrat, who don't are in favor of boys and girls sports, standing in solidarity with fraudsters in Lewiston, voting in favor, I should say, of making it illegal, basically making Maine a sanctuary state. You've got two people like that, and who are for raising taxes and just like abhorrent things if you're a traditional conservative. And then one candidate who is in favor of a sane worldview. And so it's pretty simple, for me. But it was, obviously one of the things that complicates, this election cycle is that you do have former Republican. I've said this before. It was two things. One, we live in a state that Trump lost by 6.5%. Not easy for conservatives to do well here. No, Trump didn't campaign here, and there's a lot of TDS that doesn't necessarily translate down to every every other race. However,
let's be clear, he did win by 9 percentage points in CD2.
Yes, Trump. Trump does very well in CD2. So that segment of the state, yes. The problem area of the state is my area. It's Cumberland County and York to a degree, to a lesser degree, but Cumberland and York counties tend to be, and some of basically the coastal elites, are largely what would drive Maine to be as kind of light blue as they are. But it's an uphill battle for a Republican to win a statewide election here in the state of Maine, right? It's the last time we had a Republican governor win, it was because of a divided Democrat party. And so you've got that scenario, right? Then you have like Rick Bennett, former chair of the Republican Party, just left the Republican Party, but again, is siding with the Democrats and said that he felt liberated to vote in the Democrat primary, which is just a weird move if you're trying to say that you're staying in the middle, you're being an independent. Seems like he's aligning much more strongly with Democrats. Anyway, it seems to me like in order for him to win enough votes for people to take him seriously, he needs to get some Democrats and some Republicans on his side. And I think that the way that he's positioned himself, I think is really difficult to do that. So I was not surprised when the poll came out recently. It has him at 8%. I had him in the range of 5 to 10%. So not a big surprise for me. But yeah, it's interesting how that's going to play in. Is he going to end up playing a spoiler for the Democrats, or is because of the way that he's talking, so much about things that are on the Democrat side, is he going to maybe sway enough voters from the Democrats to give us a chance? It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But obviously, whatever happens, I'm hoping that Bobby Charles and team can figure out a path forward to be able to pick up the recent polling from the Portland Press Herald. Some people look at it as like, much more negative than I think I'm viewing it. And Bobby's behind, but there are a lot of undecided voters, and there's a number of Rick Bennett voters, and it was a Portland Press Herald poll. So we kind of take that with a grain of salt. and so I think there's some room to pick it up. But as I've been saying all along, like if we're to win a lot of the elections that we need to win, if we need to win the House, the Senate, and the governor's race, it's going to require all of us pitching in, doing our part, and getting things going. So again, convincing our friends and neighbors. There are a lot of independent, moderate voters out there, and I think in the poll that they did, I think Hannah at this point was polling 47% of the independents, and Bobby was only polling like 31%. Again, it's early. Hannah's a much more well-known commodity, especially with the last name Pingree in our state. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in that independent segment. People saying they're probably going to vote for her, but we don't necessarily know, and a lot of people don't know. I think there's a play for Bobby to really point out her close connection with both Janet Mills, very unfavorable, and Graham Plattner, as she received a partial endorsement from him as a means to like scare some of the more moderate Democrats away from her. Don't necessarily even need to bring them over to us, as long as they don't go to her. I think that really opens things up. So hoping we're able to effectively do that, because she was part of the Mills administration, received Mills endorsement, received a kind of endorsement from Porta Potty Plattner. So I think there's some opportunity there.
There's definitely some opportunity, and you know what, Bobby Charles in the primary, at least from his numbers, they were attracting a lot of Democrats, and had Democrats vote in the Republican primary for Bobby Charles, and activated a lot of unenrolleds. I'm not privy to those inside numbers that they have, but they seem Bobby Charles campaign seems extraordinarily excited with the momentum, the groundswell of support that they do have, and he seemed very enthusiastic that Hannah was the Democrat winner. He sees that as a Janet Mills 2, and sees that as a great candidate to run against. So I know that the Bobby Charles campaign is extraordinarily excited about this. I'll just say this about Rick Bennett. Rick Bennett, I don't know him well. I have met him a couple of times. And I haven't known him long, but the people that have known him for a long time, that were in the Senate with him, they express that he has changed. He has moved further and further and further to the left, and as you pointed out, he supports men and women's sports. I mean, like, makes no excuses for his support for men and women's sports. He supports the state of Maine bucking the system with the federal government and not working with ICE. I think that's a disastrous plan to follow. I think the state of Maine should be working directly and cooperating with the federal government. So at the end of the day, I say to Republicans who vote for Rick Bennett are placing a vote for Hannah Pingree. And with his leftist agenda and his history of left-leaning votes, I think that he stands to pull more from the Democrats than from the Republicans. And I understand. I mean, you hear about it every day. People that were upset with the primary, not wanting to support Bobby Charles, and there's saber rattling that, some people will support Rick Bennett. I think that's a mistake, I certainly wish Hannah Pingree well, and I wish Rick Bennett well. But for one, as your national committee man, and as the chair of Washington County Republican Committee, and as the Maine GOP grassroots chair, I am all in for any Republican that the Republican base elects in the primary session. Period. I never expressed who I voted for in the primary, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm a Republican, and Bobby Charles is our candidate. So I'm gonna work very hard to get Bobby Charles elected. as our governor. And I encourage Republicans to vote up and down the ticket. Republican, red, all the way, front and back, everything. But we don't have as much a numbers problems, as much a problem with numbers, Chuck, as we do with activation. And that's what we're here to talk about.
It is. I just want to comment really quick that Ryan
Yes.
Michaels has commented, and he's asking a question, which you're here to answer that question. So I just want to highlight this. And the question is, what do you think the most powerful thing an everyday citizen can do to contribute to the process? And then he also said,
there we go.
Right. And this is exactly what you're here to talk about.
It up for us.
Yeah.
What was his name again?
Ryan Michaels.
Ryan Michaels. Thank you very much. The most important thing that you can do, you teed it up, and so I'm going to give you the answer right out of the gate, and then we'll get into the details. Ryan Michaels, go to MaineGOP.com. And when you go to MaineGOP.com, you'll see a sign-up link, and it will have a logo, Neighborhood Navigators. And it will give you an opportunity to pre-sign up for Neighborhood Navigators. And it will ask for your name, your address, your cell phone number, your email address, and so on and so forth. And then you will be registered to be a navigator for Neighborhood Navigators. Now, with that, Chuck, do you want me to go into what that is and why it's important?
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately why we're here today. And we're having other, I think, helpful conversation. But yeah, tell us about the Neighborhood Navigator program, because I think it's one of the. I think what's really nice about it is it makes it a lot easier for people to figure out what they can do to help.
100%. You hear a lot about grassroots, and to me, I'm going to give a little preamble to Neighborhood Navigators, if I may. I became involved. I've always been a Republican since I was 10 years old. 1976, I was going door to door handing out 4 Dole stickers. So I knew I was a Republican from the very, very beginning. And so I guess you could say, since I was going door to door handing out stickers at 10 years old, I've always been involved with grassroots. And the Republican Party there's 4 levels to the organization of the Republican Party. There's the Republican National Committee, which has 168 members. 3 members, the chair of each state, the national committee man, the national committee woman from each state and each territory. There's 168, including the territories of Guam and et cetera. And then you have the state committee. So for us, it's Maine GOP. And then you have the county committee. So for you, it's Cumberland County Republican Committee, and you are the chair, correct?
Yeah.
And there's Washington County Republican Committee, of which I'm chair. But the most important committee of all, because we're getting closer to the grassroots, is the town committee. And the town committee, why is it more important? Well, Joe Gruters, who is the chair of the RNC, he understands the mechanization at the federal level, and he understands big time, high level operations to get national and state and local candidates elected. But he doesn't know your neighbors. And at the town committee, if we're talking about the Manhattan Town Committee, that's quite different than the Marshfield Town Committee. The town of Marshfield, we have 600 residents and even less that are Republicans. But in the state of Maine, as a total, we have roughly 308,000 Republicans registered. And you could say that it's very important for Republicans to work on the unenrolleds to become registered Republicans. And while that is important, and that's an effort that needs to take place, I'm very, very laser focused on something much more important. And that is that of the 308,000 Republicans, 90,000 do not reliably vote, especially in a non-presidential election. And the trade term for those 90,000 is low-propensity Republican voters. I don't particularly like that term. I'd like to call them resting Republicans. And so our goal with Neighborhood Navigators is to activate those 90,000 resting Republicans. Because if we can get 45,000, there's a round number, if we can get half of those 90,000 to vote, then we win. We win, most importantly, the House, and we win the Senate. We win the Blaine House, Susan Collins, Paul LePage. And if we do well enough, possibly we can start winning in places we don't think that we can win. Think CD1.
Ron Russell.
So Ron Russell, the man and the legend. Neighborhood Navigators has been being developed for the last 6 months. And what is Justin Donnarumma and he's been working tirelessly, and he's putting the finishing touches on it right now. It has gone through, and he's also working directly with Justin Wynot. So those two have had a significant amount of effort in this portal, and this portal has gone through Apple's qualification program to become an actual app on your phone. And I can tell you that it is extraordinarily easy to operate. Now, a lot of people become terrified about going door to door or making cold calls. This process, it asks the question, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So if you volunteer, all we're asking of you is to take one little bite, a little bucket of 40 to 60 names of resting Republicans that are in your neighborhood. People that you know, you could know, from the hardware store, from the soccer field, from the school, maybe it's a lifelong buddy, or someone that you don't know, but you know the street that they live on. So this Neighborhood Navigators app, the most important thing from my perspective as a user is it's very simple. And it is something that you learn as you go, and it has built-in instructions and training. So you don't have to necessarily go to Augusta and sit all day and get trained on how to use this thing. This portal has built-in training. It also, so the turf is very bite-sized, 40 to 60 people, which is a manageable afternoon and not an intimidating list of, say, 500 names. Now, if you are an experienced veteran at knocking doors and making cold calls, making phone calls, certainly you can take a bigger chunk of the pie than 40 to 60. And the really interesting thing is, a lot of people will say, geez, I don't know how to argue politics. We're not asking anyone to argue politics. In fact, we're really not. That's not the point. The point is, you're going to be talking Republican to Republican. And the first question is, Chuck, I call you up and, hey, Chuck, this is David. I'm with Maine GOP Neighborhood Navigators. Actually, I'm with, what town do you live in, Chuck?
Westbrook.
Okay, so I'm with Westbrook Republican Committee. So you're already identified as someone that they can trust. And the number that's going to come up currently, it's going to be your number. So the likelihood of somebody answering the phone is going to be much more likely, because, hey, we all get spammed constantly with text messages and phone calls. And so it's going to be it's going to come up as localized and trustable out of the gate. And the first question is, Chuck, you probably have heard that we have an election coming up, a pretty important election. Are you planning to vote?
My vote doesn't matter.
Well, it does. It does, and that's a really good point. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I'm gonna share with you something very, very important. The Maine House was in the balance in the last election, and we Republicans missed gaining control of the House by an accumulative 60 votes in the 5 closest races across the state of Maine. So your vote does matter. And this election, whether it's the election between Susan Collins and Graham Plattner, or it's for governor, it could come down to very, very few votes. So yes, your vote does matter. So can I count on you voting?
I'll consider it.
Okay. Well, if you'll consider it, I'm going to assist you. And this will not be the first and only phone call that you're going to hear from me. I live in your neighborhood. And so I'm going to take down these notes, and I will be respectful of your time, but I'm going to reach out to you again in a few months, and I'm going to address any questions that you do have, and then I'm going to assist you. What are some of the other things that might prohibit you from voting this fall? Busy?
Yeah, busy, work,
right?
Hunting.
So there are numerous,
hunting's a thing, right?
There are numerous ways that I can help you, and we can help you get an early absentee vote ballot, and you can do it ahead of time. Or if you need assistance going to the polls on the day of, I might even come over and pick you up and give you a ride, or arrange for a ride. But I'm here to tell you that the Republican Party, you are obviously, you have some feelings, or you wouldn't have registered as a Republican. And could you agree with me that things aren't going that well in the state of Maine? Your taxes are high, your energy is high, and men and girls sports.
Ugh.
There might be a few things that are important to you that would suggest that it's very important for you to vote.
Yep, I'm pretty pissed off.
Well, that's good. So you're not alone in being upset with the direction of the state of Maine, and together we Republicans can make a difference. And if we get enough voter turnout, all I'm working on is to make sure that they call it GOTV, get out the vote. And that's my whole purpose. My request is that you vote for every Republican that is on the ballot, the front, the back, and everywhere in between. So I won't waste more of your time today, but with your I'm going to reach out again.
Okay.
And so that's the tone of the initial reach.
Well, and I think a lot of times you'd have people who would ask questions like, well, who's even running, right? Like, I was trying to play the part, but I wanted to be like, I think some things people might need to be prepared with. It's not rocket science, but like, oh, we only lost by that much? What about in my district? Like, who is the Republican who is running? How close was that race? Like, these are things that I think people might ask questions on. But
so I'll speak from my district standpoint, because I don't know off the top of my head Westbrook, but in my district, I'm in District 10, and so in House District 10, Representative Will Toole is currently a representative, and here in Washington County, we send all Republicans to Augusta. All 7 of the representatives in Senate District that are out of Washington County are Republicans in Augusta. So in your neighborhood, Chuck, I see here that you live in Marshfield, and so you're going to be voting for Will Toole. I would ask you to vote for Will Toole for District 10. You're also going to vote in Senate District 6. And the Republican running for Senate District 6 is Billy Bob Fockingham. maybe you've heard of him. He's a lobster fisherman. He lives in Winter Harbor. And I happen to know that he has a hunting camp in Wesley, and he hunts. He has a piece of land in Harrington that he hunts on. And so he's your Senate district candidate, and that's going to be an active race. I would ask you to vote for Billy Bob Fockingham. Also running in the federal election for CD2, Paul LePage is running, and we'd ask you to vote for Paul LePage. And then, of course, running for governor is Bobby Charles. We're going to ask you to vote for Bobby Charles. And they're all important, but Susan Collins, we need to send Susan Collins back to Augusta. Back to Washington, D.C., as she has been there since 1996. We can't allow Graham Plattner to storm Washington. Border potty. Yeah.
Porta potty Plattner.
Yeah.
How is that guy even a candidate?
Well, he was recruited. There's nothing grassroots about it. He was recruited by a guy in New York, a man and a woman, and then he's being trotted out by Bernie Sanders, and he's the socialist wing of the Democrat Party has taken over, and that's what they're trying to. It's a revolution, and the Democrats have left. The Democrat Party, the direction of the Democrat Party has left the average Democrat. So I don't know how anybody could vote for him, but then again, I'm only one person.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I think what you're demonstrating here, and I think this is probably helpful for people, although it may cause some anxiety. Anytime you're having like cold calls, I think people get anxiety. But it's ultimately you're calling people who are in your neighborhood. They're people who are registered as Republicans and largely agree with you. And it's really just a matter. And a lot of times, like one of the things that I don't know how true this is, but there's two things that I would say. One is like I think a lot of people don't vote because they don't know who's on the ballot. There are a lot, like, I think this happens a lot more on the Republican side than on the Democrat side, right? They have this like, well, I kind of have these principles where I don't want to vote if I don't know who the candidate is. And so it takes like a really big, like national ticket person for them to be able to get out and vote. But one of the things that we know to be true as well, especially from the 2024 election, is that there were like somewhere around 10,000, I think, people in Maine who voted in that election, which is the one we're talking about, where we lost by 60 votes in the House. And somewhere around 10,000 people didn't vote down ballot. They just voted for Trump and didn't vote down the ticket. So not only is the hope of this program to get Republicans who aren't voting, and I mean, literally 45,000 votes, as you said, if we get half of these people, I mean, this is going to make us it has the potential to have a substantial impact on this election. And so, and elections going forward. But yeah, it also will help not only people to get out and just vote for the top, but will vote everywhere down. Because again, I think part of it is people think people don't know the candidates, and again, on principle, they're not
right.
They're not.
Well, and this
gives you an opportunity to, because you're the person calling, you'll know the candidates and you'll be able to explain who they are and who they're running against and all that other kind of stuff. Creates a really great opportunity there. The other thing that I would say is there's a lot of talk I've heard, and you're not saying this, but I just want to make sure that if people are thinking this, I think that one of the mistakes we're making as the Republican Party sometimes is getting angry at the people who don't show up and vote and talking about trying to like whip them into shape. And like that's not going to work with this segment of the population, right? They don't care what you think. They know what you think already. You've been saying it, right? We need to plead with people. We need an appeal to say, hey, we need your help. I'd love it if you could help us and vote, rather than demeaning them and saying, get off your butt and get out there and vote. Because I think that the tone of the latter, it just pushes these types of people away. And I know people who personally have said, yeah, I never voted until somebody individually asked me to vote for them in an election. Yeah, and that's going to be impactful. Go ahead.
I have a couple of thoughts that come to mind. One, you're spot on. This is not confrontational. And there is no use in getting angry. Anger isn't going to fix anything. Action is going to fix this. And there's a number of things. You hit the nail on the head. I listed a number of reasons that people don't vote. They don't trust. They don't believe their vote counts. And you hit the nail on the head. Nobody asked. Like you and I don't understand people that need to be asked to vote. Right? It doesn't. I go to a Republican, Washington County Republican Committee or a Penobscot County Republican Committee, and I'll say, raise your hand if. Listen to me carefully. Raise your hand if you ever miss an opportunity to vote. Now, if they heard me properly, they will not raise their hand because nobody in that room ever misses an opportunity to vote unless, flat tire, sick. All the more reason to vote early absentee, by the way. But so we don't understand needing to be asked to vote. And a lot of people are so emphatic. I mean, it's a right that you have to vote that nothing is going to stop you. I look forward to election day. I love to vote. I do vote early absentee only because I want that number to be counted. I want it to show that Republicans are gaining in the early absentee voting column. And but I love standing in line waiting to vote. And truthfully speaking, I have missed one opportunity to vote, and it was because I was stuck on a forklift, and I just couldn't leave at this particular time. Fortunately, it wasn't a presidential election, and actually, it wasn't a very consequential election. It was a special election, but that was the only time I missed the opportunity to vote. But to your point, a lot of people will say people are angry. And God bless them. People will say, you can't complain if you don't vote. Well, I'm going to turn it around and say, it's all fine and dandy if you vote, but guess what? It's not enough. To just say I voted is not enough. And a lot of people, when we talk about grassroots, they don't know what to do and they're intimidated. Right. This is the answer. This is the solution. It is a very friendly way. Now, the training, again, the training is built into the app, and it already speaks Maine. There's an AI piece which helps to formulate answers, and there's a script that starts, and it's formulated to your area, and it's formulated to Maine. Now you can change that script. I've never read a script that I actually followed right to the letter, right? Because you sound like a robot, and you'll find the more that you do this, the more comfortable that you get. Your script will evolve, and you can change it right on the phone. Now, some other benefits are when you have an interaction, there's a place for you to put in notes so that when you either make that phone call again or go to that door again, you'll remember, oh, there's a dog that wanted to bite me.
Or there's also, I think there's an element within this app from what I remember at the state committee meeting, where there's a text message you'll send as a follow-up, and those notes will be good for you to use to be able to follow up, because if you're making 40 calls, it's easy to forget these things, and so it's great to be able to have those notes.
Yeah, if you forget how to handle a tough doorstep, you can pull up those lessons right on the spot, and it will help you navigate. Now, there's a number. You've probably heard of Numinar.
Oh yeah, yep, used it.
So there's a lot of people who have used Numinar, and there are some people that are questioning why Neighborhood Navigators when we already have Numinar. Well, there's a lot of answers to that. One, Neighborhood Navigators is simpler. Two, it has more diverse tasks. Very importantly, is Neighborhood Navigators will always be ours. Maine GOP owns Neighborhood Navigators, and therefore it will own all of the data. Now, Numinar, I'm not speaking negatively about Numinar, that this is just the fact of the matter. Numinar is data analytics driven. Neighborhood Navigators is driven by the user, and that's first and foremost. And so again, the data is owned by Neighborhood Navigators. It's owned by Maine GOP, so it's less costly to operate for the state, for Maine, not the state of Maine, but for the state committee, Maine GOP. And it also has the goal is for Navigator to be a tool belt, while Numinator can be only one tool at a time. It has a richer back end, and it's going to be continually developed to be better and more suitable for the state of Maine. Another thing that's really important is it has the smartest, it can plan the smartest walking route for you. It figures the most efficient order to hit every house, and it draws a path. And Numinar just drops your list of names onto a map. So Navigators, our portal is going to save you time, and so it doesn't require the volunteer to figure out where the next walk is. So in the state of Maine, we're very spread out, and so time is very, very critical. Let's see here. Now, let's say in Maine, you ever dropped a cell signal? Sure you have.
Yep.
Welcome to Washington County. Neighborhood Navigators works even without a cell signal. So the volunteer first, they load their turf, they knock all day in a dead zone, and everything syncs when we're back in coverage. That's
okay.
Killer. That is really good.
Yeah.
Also, the data is encrypted on the phone itself. So if the volunteer loses their device, the voter information on it is protected. It's purpose built for the field volunteer, not for the data analyst. Navigator is designed front to back around the person knocking the doors and making the phone calls. And Numinar is first and foremost a data science and modeling platform with a canvassing app attached. So Navigators is built strictly for Maine in mind, and it's going to be really good for the state Republicans all the way through.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things that I really like about it. I mean, obviously, there's the long-term cost savings, over against what Numinar can do. It seems like this is going to be able to do more and be a better tool going forward. I mean, we're still using Numinar for a lot of things this year, but I think probably in the future that might change. But either way, the cost is going to be much less significant, I think, to us as a party. But also, I think all the other things, like I said, all the things that you've described that you can do within it. But I think the biggest thing for me is like who it's focused on, right? I mean, again, you could probably, target Numinar to a degree, not as well as this is honed in, but you could target Numinar to the low propensity voters, right? But the whole strategy around this focused on these low propensity voters, which I think is, we've talked about this again. These are people who generally are less likely to show up in most elections. And like somewhere around 1/3 of our Republicans fall into that category here in the state of Maine. And so it's one of the most significant things that causes us to not win elections is Republicans not getting out to vote. When Trump became the basic running for. Oh, I think you might have lost me there for a
You're
second.
back.
But but when Trump became, our the kind of the head of the Republican Party by being the president and whatnot, I think a lot of people view that person as being the head of the party. But anyway, when he came on the scene, there was a shift from Democrat to Republican of the working class, and the working class, well, they're just that, they're working. Right. And I think that's one of the biggest factors that keeps them from showing up is like, unless it's like they feel like it's really important. And I want to highlight something that I think you don't even believe this, but you made some comments earlier about how you missed an election and it wasn't that important of an election because it was only a special election. I'm going to like flip that and say that was actually the most important election.
You're right.
Because it's the one that you would have had the most ability to impact as an individual voter. I remember going door to door and talking to this one guy who said, "Oh, I only vote in presidential elections."
Exactly.
Because that's when my vote counts the most, he said. I'm like, no, actually, the smaller the election, the higher the percentage of the higher the impact your one individual vote has. And so it's actually, I know that one of the things I'm fond of saying about Republicans, and so this is one of the challenges we face, is that they don't, they just want to be left alone. Republicans, independents, libertarians, they just leave us alone. That's their mantra, right? And within leave us alone doesn't have this, like, I'm going to get out and vote in every election built into it. However, I think once you get them to realize that the Democrats are the ones that will not leave them alone. The Democrats are the ones that are creating policies that are making it so difficult, like the story in the Maine Wire recently about this family who is making selling, I don't know, it was goat milk or some sort of thing from a farm stand that was basically got shut down or they're being tried to be shut down by the state for some silly reason. Whether you want to sell farm products, you want to do whatever is it you want to do, not bothering anybody else in your home, in your neighborhood. The Democrats want to regulate whether or not you can do that, how you can do that. They're pushing for changes in the energy policy, so to cause you to pay more money when you're using power when you would want to use power, right? Like these are the types of things that the Democrats are not going to leave you alone. That's the problem. And so we got to encourage those people and light that fire underneath them. It's like, we want you to be left alone too, which is why we're here, right? Which is why we're trying to get you to show up and vote so that the people who are trying to control your life can't do it. And so that is one of the biggest challenges we face. But yeah, that's the challenge is low propensity. But if we can address this, and really get conservatives out to vote, I think, or Republicans out to vote, the Democrats are going to be scared and we can take the state back. That's the short version. Were you going to show something for your phone?
Yeah, I just, hold on.
Yeah. So.
Right here.
Yeah.
So here it is. Oh, it's backwards. But that's, I typed in MaineGOP.com, and right as soon as you go to MaineGOP.com, it's the first thing up. There's all kinds of things on MaineGOP.com, and everybody should frequent MaineGOP.com to see what is going on a regular basis. It's a clearinghouse of information, but it opens. There you go. Stand up for Maine's future.
All right. And there it is. Neighborhood Navigator pre-sign up right here. You put in your information, submit form, and you're good to go.
Yep. And we're meeting this week. Again, Justin Donnarumma is, he's still working on it. It's ready to rock and roll, and we're meeting this week to strategize. I mean, it's going to take a lot of people to really effectively do this, and we're gonna strategize rolling it out. But I love competition. I love friendly competition, and you. I don't know if you were chair, but in 2024, I challenged that Washington County. You remember this?
I remember hearing about it. Yeah, I think I
offered up my hair, and I love my hair, by the way. I have it all. It may be gray, but it's mine. But I offered it up. I said, Washington County, we are going to have the greatest percentage increase of Republicans voting over 2020. So from 2020 to 2024, my bet is that Maine will have the greatest percentage increase of Republicans voting over any other county. And so if one county beats us, I'm going to lose my hair. And then I furthered the bet and I said, but I'm gonna rope in my buddy Joe Martin, who was the chair of Oxford at the time. I said, if we beat Oxford, regardless, if somebody beats us, which they did, I think it was not Sagadahoc. Where's Jim White?
Not sure.
Jim and Tricia White. Oh, forgive me for getting their county. Anyway, we were beat, and we beat Oxford. So the second part of the bet was if anybody beat Washington County in that percentage of Republicans voting over 20 to 24, then my hair would be shaved publicly. And then secondly, if we beat Oxford, that Joe Martin would lose his hair. And then I'd add a little sub note that he has staples in his head, so his head is really ugly. He doesn't want to lose his hair. And as it turns out, we were beat, and we also beat Oxford. So Joe and I were both going to lose our hair at a state committee meeting, and at the last minute, Jason Savage came up with a great idea that if we raised $2,000 at that meeting for Maine GOP, that both of our hair would be saved. And we ended up raising, I think it was $4,600 we raised at that meeting. So we saved our hair and made a bunch of money for Maine GOP. And so
I think you could have made more money if the challenge was if people raised at least $5,000, Jason Savage would also shave his head.
He doesn't have as much to lose.
But still, I think it would have motivated people to give more than saving your hair. I want to see people humiliated more than I want to. I'm just kidding. I mean, a little bit. There's a little bit. Anyway,
it's fun. The competition is fun. So we want to build some competition into this process. We want to keep in touch with the volunteers on a fairly regular basis, and I'm not exactly sure what that looks like, but kind of a fireside chat, a bedside chat, whatever, nighttime chat. What are your challenges? What are your wins? Here are some helpful ideas, and at the same time, making sure that people actually just get started.
Yeah.
And within that, we want to create some competition for the people who recruit the most people into the program, and also some competition around those who, after the fact, after we're able to really peel apart the onion in January of 27, which volunteers had the greatest percentage of Republicans within their bucket that voted, with something special for if you got 100%, which I can't imagine being able to get 100% because the bucket that you get is going to be very randomized. So you might have a person that's on there that's just no way that you're going to get them to vote. But
right.
Anyway, we want to build some competition into it, and we're still developing what that's going to look like. And come along, come give us a hand, man. Chuck, you're all in, right? And I'm all in. And anybody that is chair of a county committee, we're all in. And there's a lot of people out there that are cheering us on to get the work done, but we can't do it alone.
Yeah.
We need everybody's help, whether it's the lobsterman and the lobster woman or their spouse. We need, lobster fishermen and fishermen up and down the coast.
Oyster farmers, real oyster farmers.
Yeah, there are some real oyster farmers, and the fishermen are notorious for not voting.
Yeah.
They really are, and we need to activate them.
Yeah. 100%. Well, yeah. Well, thank you so much for the work that you do. I call it work, and it is work, but it's not paid work. The volunteering that you do for the Maine Republican Party through all the different hats that you wear, whether it's the Washington County Republicans, the National Committeeman, or the grassroots. I feel like this is one of the challenges I feel like we sometimes have, and why I think this podcast is helpful for other people to learn more about how things work. But I think I don't know if that was an official title, the thing about grassroots. You the chair of the grassroots. What was that you had mentioned earlier on?
Grassroots chair. I'm the champion of Neighborhood Navigators.
That's the bottom line. Yeah.
Where it came from was Joe Gruder's on a call with all the chairmen and national committee men and women to every state. He challenged each chair to name a grassroots chair in their state.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then to come up with a solution what they're going to do. So Maine was very literally the only state that immediately jumped out and did it. Jim picked up the phone after and he said, "David, would you be the chair for Maine?" And I said, "Absolutely, but you got to give me the tools, because I don't want to fail. I mean, I don't want to fail at this, and so this is the tool." Well,
unfortunately, like what I think, I know you got to get going, so I want to be quick about this, but I believe in Providence. The church that I was at this Sunday, the sermon was on Providence. You could say sovereignty, and it's interesting that in this instance, like you were looking for that tool, but there are other people had already been working on with vision, having had a vision for the need for this type of tool, had been working on building it, and we're just looking for the right person, the right time, opportunity, all that other kind of stuff to actually be able to implement it. So I think it's I've been hearing from Justin Donnarumma for a while about a tool he had been working on. And so here is the not quite the finished product, but finished enough to be able to deploy. That I think is going to.
Will it ever be really finished?
Right, yeah.
We're going to deploy it, but it's going to be evolving.
Right.
And man, he is excited.
Yeah.
He really is.
Yeah. Well, so am I.
And speaking of church, I appreciate you having me on here today, because this reaches a lot of people. And I need to focus the next month, 2 months of recruitment, and I need to be in front of as many Republicans in Maine as I possibly can get. So if you can think of some other entities, or if your audience can think of places where I need to be either online or in person. I just drove 8 hours to Scarborough to meet with 12 people last week. On Monday, and I would like to speak to a few more than 12 people if I'm going to drive 8 hours, but hey, I'm willing. And so big churches, I know that there's a lot of effort to make sure that the religious people across Maine that are conservative get involved, and we need to activate all the churches across the Maine, and the parishioners of the churches across the state of Maine to focus on voting and getting people out to vote. So if I can, any group that I can get in front of, I certainly want to get in front of the county committees.
I've got a great idea. I've got a great idea for you for another podcast. I'll tell you after.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you again so much, David. I want to get you out because I know you got to get off to something else. So thank you for taking the time. Thank you for volunteering all the time that you volunteer. And
actually, let me explain. Maine is so on the map with the RNC, and this Neighborhood Navigators has made some traction and some waves. And what I'm doing next at 1:00, I'm on the RNC's grassroots committee, and they've asked me to present to everyone what we're doing in Maine. So Maine is really important to the RNC and to President Trump, Susan Collins, Paul LePage, and all of our races here in Maine. But now Maine is making a splash in the RNC with this Neighborhood Navigators. So that's what I'm doing next.
That's awesome. Well, I wish you. I hope that goes well, and I look forward to seeing how this program rolls out, and looking back after this next election and seeing the progress that we made through it. So,
Great.
Thank you again. All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, hang out a little bit if you can, and we'll see the rest of you here probably back. I think next week, probably next Tuesday. We're going to aim to pick back up with our normal Tuesday mornings with John Featherston after about a month hiatus. So thank you,